of appearances with 60 Minutes and CNBC. On Friday, he also dropped out of a podcast interview with a staffer claiming he was exhausted. Trump's campaign has denied that claim, but we also saw Trump this week stop a town hall to listen to music and wander around the stage in Detroit last night after a microphone failed. The Harris campaign says it's all evidence Trump himself is not fit to return to the White House. What do you think?
I think that's apparent. I think that people close to him understands that and knows that. Look, he's the oldest guy. He's an old man, and his mental capacity continues to decrease. I think that is clear. He cannot continue to string a good sentence together. He seems to, the weirdest thing, as you said, Rev, was him just dancing I shouldn't say dancing because he wasn't really doing that, but hopping up or putting his hands down as opposed to answering questions, not going before the media other than very friendly media. And there's a problem when you go before the friendly media and you still are losing your trend of thought. So there is very clearly a problem with the former president and his mental stability. I think that is just obvious. And so his being fit to be president for another 4 years, well, even if we go by what he did in his first 4 years, he would not be a good person for that. But now his physical and mental disabilities seem to be apparent, and that should also give a warning to the rest of America.
I'm glad you corrected that because both of you know he can't dance. He showed that. But let's get to Georgia, where more than 1 million ballots have already been cast. Tonight, the vice president is rallying in Atlanta, where she'll be joined by the singer Usher. And I'll be in the Peach State tomorrow for my interview with the vice president, which airs tomorrow night on this show. Obviously, every swing state counts in a close race like this. But as Democrats try to maximize black turnout, where does Georgia fit specifically in that effort?
Georgia's huge. That's the reason why you see so many people there. That's why you're going there. The Congressional Black Caucus is there now. They're working around the clock to touch bases with individuals from Savannah to Atlanta and further out. So I think that Georgia, we know, is going to be very close. And we've seen with the election of Reverend Warnock that Georgia can be won if the people turn out to vote. That was a historic vote for Senator Warnock twice. And so it's about turnout. It's about getting people out to vote. And so Georgia shuts things down for any possibility of Donald Trump trying to return to the White House. And as you said, all battleground states are up. I'm currently in Nevada with former President Obama, who will be here tonight, and the Congressional Black Caucus. So Georgia, tremendously important, but we're not leaving any stone unturned. We're covering all the battleground states from Georgia to Nevada to Pennsylvania to Michigan to Arizona. We're going to be everywhere because so much is on the line. This is the most consequential election of our lifetime.
And there's no doubt we saw a huge turnout that elected Reverend Senator Raphael Warnock and Senator Ossoff in a state that never really elected Democrats to those positions. Democrats are working hard to turn out black voters for races up and down the ballot. The Congressional Black Caucus, as you mentioned, obviously a big part of that effort. And you're the chair of the caucus's Political Action Committee, working to elect more black members to Congress. As you just mentioned, you're also leading the caucus bus tour, promoting the Harris-Walz ticket in swing states, which kicked off yesterday in Georgia. Describe the reception so far that you've seen.
The reception is fantastic, because we're on the ground and we're touching people. And when you get to talk to folks and talk to them about the facts and what the vice president represents, what she has done and what she will do, it is just the excitement just continues to build. And I think that you see that in Georgia now by the early vote turnout. And they sort of continue to get folks to come out in great numbers. I think they're setting all type of record numbers now in early vote turnout in Georgia. So it has been very receptive to members of the CBC and others that are there. We'll be there tomorrow also, going to the various churches and making sure that we're bringing souls to the polls. But people are excited about it. They seem to, but most importantly for me, Rev, they seem to understand the seriousness of the moment, the importance of this election, and what it means, of whether we go backwards or go forwards. You know, being the heart of the civil rights movement, as you know, in the South with Georgia, being one of the key areas there with Dr. King, that's important because this means that while we don't want to go back, because what Donald Trump is talking about, we want to build on Dr. King's dream, in fact, turn it into reality. And how do we do that? By turning out to vote. Before you go,
area that you work in, you're the leading minority leader of the Foreign Affairs Committee. You were chaired there. The vice president this week called on Israel's killing of top Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar an opportunity to finally end the war in Gaza, return Israeli hostages and American hostages, and help the Palestinian people rebuild. The Biden administration shares that view as it prepares to try again on a ceasefire deal between Hamas and Israel, as U.S. support for the war continues to complicate the vice president's campaign with anti-war voters and Arab and Muslim Americans in swing states like Michigan. What do you think happens now, and will it have an impact on our election?
Well, I think that what should happen is we do need to have a ceasefire, and we do need to get humanitarian aid into Gaza. And, you know, Rev, the world is a little different, and the Middle East is different now than it had been previously, in the sense that we've got to work. I know I've been working very closely with Saudi Arabia, with Egypt, with Jordan. All of these are countries in the Middle East that want to have a better relationship with Israel, but also want to make sure there's a better way of life for the Palestinians. They've committed to build or to rebuild Gaza and to make sure that the Palestinians have a state of their own, a two-state solution. And so I think that what should happen now is we need Prime Minister Netanyahu to take a victory lap, because getting rid of Sinwar is a big deal. It's like us getting rid of Osama bin Laden. But now it should also open up that window where we can get those hostages home, understand Israel has the right to defend itself, work with others in the region so that we can have them normalize relationship and move forward towards having a two-state solution, which will then change the region into a peaceful area forever.
All right. Thank you, as always, for being with us, New York Congressman Gregory Meeks. Now, let's go to Michigan. Joining me now is Democratic Attorney General Dana Nissel. Earlier today, Vice President Kamala Harris held a rally in your state. Let's take a listen to some of it.
I keep talking about somebody needs to just watch his rallies if you're not really sure how to vote. Because he spends full time talking about himself and mythical characters, not talking about the working people, not talking about you, not talking about lifting you up.
Attorney General Nessel, how well is she resonating with critical Michigan voters?
Well, firstly, the vice president has been to the state of Michigan so often during the campaign, she might as well take up residence here. And we would love to have her. But I would say this, I was on the doors all day in Detroit today, and I saw only two types of folks, people who were ineligible to vote or people who were voting for Kamala Harris. There was no third bucket of people out there. So I will say this, the people that I've talked to are excited, they're energized, and there's a lot of motivation to get out there and to vote for Kamala Harris. We're a very purple state here in Michigan. So it's always a close call, but I think that Kamala Harris is doing all the right things, and Michiganders, I think, are to show up for her.
Yes, I will be there with Nash Action Network and Reverend Charles Williams in a Get Out the Vote bus to a few cities on Thursday. But let's compare the Harris event to Donald Trump last night in Detroit. His rally went off the rails when the microphones malfunctioned, leaving the former president wandering around on stage for nearly 20 minutes. When the mics were back up, Trump threatened not to pay the bill for the rally over the technical glitches. What do you make of what voters in your state witnessed at that event?
You know, the same thing that they normally witness at a Trump rally, just a lot of pettiness and anger and hostility and a lot of incoherent rambling, mostly, which is the exact opposite of what you see at a Kamala Harris event, right? Where there's people who are joyful, people who are looking forward towards the future, and people who are really excited to vote for their candidate. And yes, I will say there are a lot of people that are afraid of Donald Trump and want to make sure he gets nowhere near the White House again. But more than that, I see people who are just really excited for the opportunity to cast their ballot for Vice President Harris. We've already had over 1 million people in Michigan who've voted as of this morning. I'm sure that the numbers are much higher now because today was the first day of early voting. We have voting parties that took place all day today. The polls are open until 7 p.m. and also tomorrow in the city of Detroit. So Detroiters are excited to get out there. And I think we are going to see record levels of turnout by the end of this election.
Now, the glitchy microphone incident came several days after a testy Trump interview in Chicago about economics, where he had some pretty surprising things to say about auto workers. Take a listen.
The Mercedes-Benz will start building in the United States. And they have a little bit, but you know what they really are? Assembly, like in South Carolina. But they build everything in Germany, and then they assemble it here. They get away with murder because they say, oh, yes, we're building cars. They don't build cars. They take them out of a box and they assemble them. We could have our child do it.
Trump was talking about auto workers in the South. But I'm sure there are many in Michigan who heard what he said, what he had to say. I mean, how do you think they're reacting?
Well, I know how they're reacting. Not well. They're insulted, and they ought to be, right? Some of our auto workers, our UAW members, are some of the hardest working people, in our state and around the country. And I don't think they take kindly to that kind of talk. But, that's all that Trump knows how to do, is to insult the people that he's trying to court. I mean, he's been to the city of Detroit multiple times where he has insulted the city of Detroit. So, as I've said a few times, that's like, calling us ugly and then asking us out on a date, right? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And at the end of the day, all it's doing is motivating people to get out to the polls to make sure they're voting for Kamala Harris. And so I think that's what we're going to see at the end of the day.
Early voting got underway today in Michigan. The state has already received, as you said, over 1 million absentee ballots from voters as of today. And early voting figures in your state showed strong activity within Democratic strongholds among those who requested mail-in ballots. 55% were sent to registered Democrats, while only 35%